So, Aisha Miracle, we were discussing about managing the mind. Okay, we discussed managing the mind as the topmost required competency for human being, especially in today's times. Not only that, all Western philosophies, all Indian philosophies, especially Chinese Tao, defines the greatest mastery is mastery of the mind. It is mentioned in the book Tao Te Ching, written by Lao Tzu. Okay. So, as you are preparing to become an extraordinary individual, Aisha Miracle, as you are envisaging yourself to be a miracle in life, in work, in relationships, or in your expressions, in your responses, in your behaviors, in your actions, and in your language, we discuss this. But what we are going to discuss is basically about managing the mind. Once you are capable of managing the mind, anything is actually possible. Because mind is a great wonder, a great magic, a great phenomenon. Therefore the problem. You know, mind is often compared to the moon, even astrologically. Like moon has the dark side and the bright side, mind has a clear dark side and very surprisingly a lesser extent of bright side. As a researcher and a creative analyst of existence, I have realized that somehow this mind is more inclined towards supporting the relative darkness of human activities and thought process than supporting the good things. You know, a depressing idea, a depressing feeling, a depressing experience, a depressing perception will become more active and dynamic in its effect than so-called happy things. Let's say one of the topmost researchers in creativity, named Edward de Bono. He wrote the first book on creativity, and the name of that book was Happiness Purpose. That means one has to be creative to create and maintain happiness. That's what I also, as a creativity researcher for about 45 years, I have also realized that without so-called creativity, it is rather impossible to sustain a happy, peaceful mind. Because that much is the so-called magic of the mind in supporting darkness. Yeah. That is the magic of mind. Whatever the individual does, the mind cooperates. But if an individual is trying to do something very negative or unethical or manipulative or cunning or criminal, the mind would be all the more, what you call, sincere in supporting it. Yeah. That's why in the world there is a lot more of unethical activities, or rather unethical leadership, unethical corporations, unethical clerics and leaders who almost control the world. Now what is going on 2025? What is going on in the world? You see? All reflections of the, let us say, I would say, unethical mental process of national leaders, whichever country. Simply so-called war for no reason, for example. That's all supported by the mind of the prime ministers and presidents or whoever. Anyway, coming back to the point, I wanted to tell you about uh, Zen parable, Zen Zen of Japan. It is basically about managing the mind in a way. But managing the mind towards enlightenment, towards what they call Satori. Satori is the Zen word for enlightenment, though both are little different. Satori is about getting a quick glance of the vital operating principle inside you. That you in you, that aspect in you which is right now guiding you, directing you, enabling you to sit there and listen to me. The deep, hidden, invariant engine is Satori, or identifying that deepest engine that drives all your expressions and responses and behaviors and actions and relationships and language is the central thing, and identifying that is Satori. So that is in general about Sati and Zen, and we were discussing many things. Then on the way of discussion, I told you, drop the girl. Because you being a very competent person, a thinking person, like all thinking individuals in the world, have been suffering from depression. I have analyzed the biography of about 82 so-called geniuses in the history of the world in connection with my doctoral work in creativity. There is a famous statue created by a great sculptor by J.B. Rodin. That sculptor is named Thinker, and it's a man sitting with a bowed head, keeping his chin on the hand, with apparently a depressed expression. So thinker meaning a person liable to feel depressed. Quite possibly, because that's the way of the society. That's the way of the events and entities and things in life almost all the time since historical beginning. So you are a thinker, so you experience occasional points of depression. In that context only I told, drop the girl. In fact, drop the girl, I repeated actually a sentence in a great Zen parable by name Monks and the Girl. That's the name of the parable, Zen parable. So, I will tell you the parable, okay? So the parable, Zen monks and the girl. You know monks. In India also monks were there. In Christian tradition also there are monks. And these are monks of the Zen tradition. So you know the attributes of monks. They are all individuals of great wisdom and understanding, of absolute firmness and correctness and completeness and elegance of expressions and responses and behaviors and relationships and languages. Okay, they are especially the Zen monks, especially. I don't have a similar opinion about monks even in the Hindu tradition. All right, but Zen monks, I have analyzed them. They are, because that is Zen. Zen is about living, not just talking great ideologies and living the way they like. No. Zen is in everyday life. Zen is in every moment of you. The way you sit, the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you cook. Everything is possibly guided by a Zen mind. That is what you see in Japanese culture also. Anyway, this is the parable. What? The Zen monks and the girl. So I will talk the parable only with this kind of lateral linkages. Okay. The parable is only one page, actually speaking. Maybe some 10, 12 sentences. But I want you to feel the parable like a disciple in the Zen monastery. Okay? Rather, I look at you as a disciple for now in the Zen monastery of my my location, my space location. Okay. So I saw miracle. The parable Zen monks and the girl. So that kind of monks, Zen monks, were on a journey, in a horse cart. Okay, that ancient horse cart. You have seen the pictures? Have you seen a horse cart? No. You have seen bullock carts. Yeah, more or less the same design, but with the covering for people to travel, and maybe sometimes one horse or two horses, depending upon the size and the load capacity of the cart. Two Zen monks were on a journey in a horse cart. And these two Zen monks were not just like any Zen monks. I told you already about monks, I already told you about Zen monks. But these two Zen monks were the topmost reputed, well-known Zen monks of Japan. Of course, one of them was the head of the largest and the most established monastery, the senior monk, very elderly. And the next one, just not that elderly, he was also the head of a monastery, but of a lesser orbit. Nevertheless, both of them were Zen masters and heading their own monasteries. But one, of course, senior. And in the Zen culture, senior, junior, sub-junior, etc. have very clear definitions of demeanor, behaviors. Even now, in 2024 in Japan, when you meet each other, you bow down your head, even now. So, even now, for example. So, similarly, but much more at a higher level, among monks, for example, this junior monk, though he was heading the monastery, he was behaving to the senior monk with all the respect and expressions of reverence. Okay. In the cart, there was sitting the senior-most monk and the head of the largest monastery of Japan, and behind him, not along with him, behind him was the next senior-most monk of Japan, heading a monastery. Not an equal monastery, in which case they would have been sitting in the same seat. And that senior monk was invited even by the Emperor of Japan. That kind of a senior monk. So his halo, his image is so large also. I say this much about the senior monk for a reason which you will know later. Okay. There was the cartman. Do you see the cart moving? It was the forest and hills and the jungles and that kind of a pathless path, kind of a path, and the horse cart was moving. It was almost a 3-day journey actually. So the first day was over, and they had arranged a monastery kind of a place for their stay. They were invited. So first day, reverend monks stayed here. So they stayed there. In the night, there was a terrible heavy rain, what we call torrential rain, extraordinary rain. And the rain subsided by morning, almost completely. So the journey continued the same way. So soon they reached a path through the mountainous terrain. The path was filled with water, muddy water, running down from the mountain top. So it filled most parts of the path. So they were traveling. Then they saw in the distance apparently a beautiful young girl standing on the path very obviously not hesitant to cross the muddy patch of water, muddy flowing patch of water. So water was coming from the top and filling the path and going down. So she could not even take a detour, a roundabout way also. So the cart reached there, and the cart was about to reach the waterlogged area. Then the senior most monk told the cartman, "Please stop." The cart stopped. So he looked at this young girl, very beautiful girl, in very apparently very costly, what you call kimono. Kimono is the name of the dress, okay? And must be a mountainous village girl. Quite possibly she must have been going for the wedding or some ceremony of a nearby temple or a friend's or something like that. Because that kimono was obviously some select costly kind of a thing. A village girl, mountainous village girl would not wear that kind of a kimono otherwise. So to continue the next part, as the cart reached near the girl, the senior most monk told the cartman to stop the cart. Then the monk looked at the girl. Obviously she was in distress, because if she crossed the rather long patch of dirty, muddy, flowing water, her kimono would get wet. Not only wet, maybe dirty also. And it was obviously costly, well-decorated kimono. Then monk looked at her and extended his hands. And the girl looked into his eyes for a moment, and she also extended her hands. And holding on to her hands, he lifted her and sat her near him. Near him. And the cart crossed the muddy patch of water. So the cart was stopped, and the same way he lifted her and placed her down. And she bowed, and the cart proceeded. Now there's a big issue. It's a big problem, a great problem. Because almost like in any other tradition, the monks are not supposed even to think about a woman. Especially a monk, a master. Here what he has done, he has almost touched her and lifted her and sat her near him. And the junior monk could just not tolerate this. The Supreme Master, the Zen monk, how could he do this? This was the conflicting point for the junior master. He was completely upset. And he could not ask a question to the master also, Very revered senior master, he could not question him. That's all the more complicated. And the cart went on. Till then, actually, they were talking. Yesterday, when they were traveling, they were discussing some aspects of the tradition, the general culture of, whatever they would talk at a monk level, they were discussing. Because for the junior master, it was a God-given opportunity to interact with the senior-most monk and travel with him and all that. So he almost took advantage of that and asked all his, perhaps questions also to him. And now there is no dialogue. Because when you have something very pressing to talk, and if you cannot talk that, then you cannot talk anything. That's a natural system. When this load of confusion is there, you cannot talk anything else also. So there was a kind of a disturbing, eerie silence in the cart. Finally, it was the evening, the cart reached the second day of stay, a monastery. So cart reached the front of the monastery and the cart stopped. The master, the junior master got down on one side and the senior master got down. Then the master, a young master came to him, finally. He was so fed up. No, it is going to be evening and night. And today, if you do not clarify, if he could not say this to him, why? Yes, why he did that? That kind of some question. He would not be able to sleep. So he went to the master, bowed before him and said, Master, in our tradition, we are not even supposed to think about a female. But I am so confused. You carried her in your arms. The senior master looked at him and said, Yes, I carried her there. Yes. And I dropped her there. Are you still carrying her? That's the end of the parable. All right. So we are all carrying girls of various types, of various contexts, with our own justifications. This so-called mind feels a kind of a pleasure. It was Sigmund Freud who first talked about the basic tendency of the mind, pleasure-pain principle, to avoid pain and holding on to pleasure, which is obvious even in the behavior of a young baby. It was a survival program. When the baby is missing the food, it should cry, it should stress it, then only the others will know. So if there is pain and if it does not respond, its survival would be in problem. So, and it seeks the pleasure. And the entire human motivation is to somehow seek pleasure only. You see all this progress, the chair and the table, the cooking vessels and the cooking stove and the electric supply and water connection and all those at home, the vehicles of various kinds. Even though only two people, if they need maybe 2 rooms, they build palaces, They buy costly ornaments and etc., etc. It is so obvious. It's all to get that moments of pleasure only. It is not to avoid pain actually. So it's a pleasure-oriented. So that's a different issue. So what I am about to say is that this strange mind enjoys carrying girls. Even though it is a displeasing, sad memory, it enjoys incubating on that, ruminating on that. For no reason. If you have some disturbing thoughts in your mind, so what? It is not directly connected to the reality. By thinking about it, you are not going to escape, okay? Okay, you think for 1 minute, can I do anything? No, nothing is coming, then drop the girl. Okay? So, learn to drop the girl. All kinds of girls are standing on the road of your existential path. you will be forced to carry them. In the case of the parable, the senior monk chose to take her, to help her. For him, helping her was the intent. He did not think about the rules and the definitions of the monks' behaviors and mindsets of the tradition. Whereas the junior monk was just holding on. He was carrying the load of the traditional rules and routines only. Whereas the senior monk had gone beyond that. For him, touching a girl and not touching a girl doesn't make any difference. That's why he did it. Whereas the other guy was just seeing that he was carrying the girl in the mind. That's why the senior monk told him, I carried her, but I dropped her there, and are you still carrying her? And the plight, the situation of the great majority of educated and otherwise kind of human beings in the world is just carrying the girls in their minds. Okay. Like the young monk did. So it is not easy to drop the girl, definitely. You have to train you have to apply your will. Will is your power. I have written there and pasted a paper on that word, pillar. Will has to be greater than the skill. Okay, you are very skilled. And let's say by 5 o'clock you are tired. But if you are applying your will, just go on doing it. Like Edmund Hillary said at 3,000 feet height, he said, my heart was trembling with fear, but I just took the next step. That is will. And you have that will. With that will, train yourself not to carry the girls. But as I said, the girls will enter into your cart. But see that you drop them. Okay? Wish you all the best, Ashwa Miracle, in your life, in your career. Okay? And to and to create a wonderful destiny for you. You can create it. As I told you, genius is a choice. Choose your genius to create a beautiful destiny for you. Ashwa Miracle. Okay? Once again, good luck. Bye.